All right, let's dive into a really fascinating legal battle that pits one homeowner against his entire homeowners association. It's a story that's got everything: community politics, serious accusations, and a legal twist that you probably won't see coming. So our story kicks off when things are already, well, pretty heated. The board of the Greenlaw Townhouses HOA in Flagstaff, Arizona decided to take a huge step. They were going to hold a special vote to remove one of their very own board members.
So they call the vote, right? And the results, it was a total landslide. 70 homeowners voted to kick board member William P. Lee out. Only 4 voted to keep him. You see numbers like that and you think, well, that's a done deal.
But here's where it gets wild. That is not how it played out. Despite that completely lopsided vote, the whole thing ends up in court, and a judge actually declares Mr. Lee, the guy they all voted to remove, the winner of the dispute.
Okay, so this is the part that makes you scratch your head, right? How in the world can you lose a vote 70-4 and still walk away the legal victor? Well, let's break it down. To figure this all out, we've got to look at Mr. Lee's side of the story. He didn't just accept the vote, he filed a formal complaint. His argument was that the HOA hadn't just violated its own rules, but it had actually broken Arizona state law.
So here's what he was claiming. First, that a previous vote to make the board bigger was done improperly. Second, and this is the big one, that the vote to get rid of him was legally all wrong. And third, that this was basically just a personal attack meant to harass him. And he didn't mince words. In the actual legal filing, he came right out and called the board's actions improper and deceitful. So, in his view, this wasn't just a disagreement. It was an unfair, targeted campaign against him.
Okay, so that's his side. But, of course, there are 2 sides to every story. Let's take a look at how the HOA board fired back against these accusations. They saw things very differently. So the board's response? They said, "No way, we weren't being deceitful at all." Their whole defense was that Mr. Lee himself had become, and this is their phrase, an impediment to the continued operation of the board. They basically argued he was impossible to work with.
And they pointed to one specific moment that they said was, the straw that broke the camel's back. The board secretary testified that Mr. Lee went and sent a letter to someone the HOA was in a lawsuit with, supposedly without telling any of the other board members. For them, that was just the last straw.
So you've got 2 very different stories here. A lot of anger on both sides. How does a judge even begin to sort this out? Well, it turns out the decision didn't come down to who was nicer or easier to work with. It all came down to the rulebook.
And what the judge came back with was really interesting. It was a split decision. On that first issue, the vote to make the board bigger, the judge sided with the HOA, saying they didn't break the law. But on the critical issue, the vote to actually remove Mr. Lee, the judge found the HOA did violate the law.
And that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If the community was so overwhelmingly against him, what rule could possibly be powerful enough to just throw out a 70-4 vote? Well, the answer is in a specific Arizona state law. It lays out a super clear 2-step process for removing a board member. Step 1, you have to get a petition signed by a bunch of homeowners. Step 2, then and only then can you call a special meeting to hold the actual vote. And this isn't just some pointless piece of red tape, it's a safeguard to make sure a board can't just call a surprise vote without proving there's real support for it first.
And here is the absolute kicker. In its own legal paperwork filed with the court, the HOA straight up admitted that it skipped step 1. They never got the signed petition. They just went directly to holding the vote.
To get really specific, that law required a petition signed by people representing at least 25% of the community's votes, or 100 votes, whichever was less. This had to be done before they could even schedule the meeting. By their own admission, they just didn't do it.
And that right there tells you what this case was really all about. It wasn't about who was right or wrong in their personal squabbles. It was about whether a critical rule, a procedure designed to protect the rights of everybody involved, was followed.
So what were the consequences? Well, since the HOA broke the law, they were ordered to pay Mr. Lee $1,000, which basically covered half of what it cost him to file his complaint in the first place.
On top of that, the HOA got hit with a $200 civil penalty. Now, those numbers might seem pretty small, and they are, but the point wasn't about the money. It was about sending a crystal clear message. You have to follow the procedure.
And that's really the heart of this whole thing. The final verdict wasn't about who liked whom. It was about procedure. That 70-4 vote felt like a powerful statement from the community, but it was completely invalidated because the process used to get there was broken. So,
This case leaves us with a really fundamental question to think about. When it comes to how we govern ourselves in any community, what's more important? The overwhelming will of the majority, or the letter of the law that everyone agreed to follow?